Welcome back to One Stories, the podcast. Today you'll get to hear from Jon Taylor and then hear his one story. But before we do that, let's learn a little bit about Jon. Welcome, Jon.
Thanks for having me, Wendy.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. So I'm going to have Jon introduce himself and tell you a little bit about what he does.
My name is Jon Taylor, and I am a speaker, a producer, and I work in media and marketing. And so a lot of people think of me as a fractional marketing officer. I help with strategies and ideas on how uh, Fortune 500s and publicly traded companies can market their brand and reach a new audience by creating a new message.
Fascinating. So you have a lot of things that you do. Obviously, I know you from the production, the video standpoint. Out of all the things you just mentioned, what is your favorite thing to do?
My favorite thing to do is creating ideas on how to reach people
Hmm.
and with marketing. And a lot of times you'll talk to a company and they will speak in tech talk, whether it's a coach or it's a publicly traded utility company or some type of technology company. If you say, what do you do and how do you help people? They'll go into the depth of it. You probably experience this with coaches where they just dive into, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do a life wheel, and they go into all this stuff about like the tactics and the strategy of what they do, but then they miss the Simon Sinek why of what they do and their purpose. Or it goes the other way. They go too far into the purpose and the why, and then you'd have no idea what they do. So getting really clear on your message and people, how companies help people or companies help companies is where I find a lot of enjoyment because when people start talking about complicated things, whether it's how an electrical transmission happens or a piece of technology works or some type of personal transformation, I look at it and I'm able to break it down into smaller parts and analyze it in a different way. And I think that's like my superpower that I have.
Yeah, I love that because for someone like me, I've got kind of that ADHD brain. If someone throws a lot of tech terminology or too much technical anything at me, I'm like my eyes are crossing and I'm already off in space thinking of God knows what. And I'm trying to come back to the conversation and it just does not hold my attention. So if I'm an ideal client of anybody's, they're going to lose me when they get too far into the woods with their conversation. So I appreciate that you kind of reel them in and like, okay, yeah, think about who you're talking to. Is that part of it? Is like, let's think about who you're talking to.
Yeah, and that's where it all starts. It's who's your ideal client? What do they do? And if it's a coach, they may be looking at, well, I want to work for this company, and so they think of the company as the ideal client. But actually, there's a person who hires them. There's a human being who makes that decision, and so you have to appeal to that human being's needs and desires and solve their problems. The easiest way to do it is just to ask them. If you want to work for a company, call 10 companies just like that and say, what's your biggest problem right now? And they'll say, my biggest problem is this. And then you say, oh, well, I have a program that solves that. It does this, this, and this, and here's how we address it. And that's the sales technique is you find out what people need and then you solve it. It's tried and true. It's how every company in the history of the world has solved this and done this since the beginning of time. It is marketing 101.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of trial and error. I mean, myself in particular, obviously I teach people to get on paid stages, but in the process of that, I've learned that as much as they want to do that, I have to go back a few steps, just like you're talking about, I have to come back a little bit. Like, what's the real problem? Is they don't know that they have stories to tell. And so
Yeah.
now I've learned I need to tackle that before I can even get them on the paid stages. So it was a huge kind of awakening for me in this past couple of years. Like, oh, like I'm making a jump for them that they're not ready to make yet. So I have to kind of dial it back a little bit and like, and you start to see where the actual problems are, just as you're saying with these businesses. You think you know what their problem is, and you start talking to them, and it's like, oh, here's where your actual problem is.
Yeah. And the two things happen when you talk to a company and you say, what would you like to do or what would you like to accomplish with a marketing campaign? They say, well, I'm in this sector, but I want to go to that sector. or I don't really know what I want to do. I just want to get bigger. I just want to have more clients, more money. And so defining when you talk to them, like you said, and really refine what they do, what I always find is that they say they do this, but they want to do that. After talking to them a while, they're like, no, I really do want to do this, but that's just kind of like a pie in the sky kind of a dream. And if you start with this, like if you do this, if you work with people to turn them blue, and that's you're really good at turning people blue. Uh, don't try to turn people red, right? Like, like you don't even know how red works. So just stay in the blue lane, get really good at it, figure out the system of how you do that, and then go into that other lane of doing that second thing, and then you can scale easier.
I love that analogy because that's how my brain works. Like as soon as you said the blue and then the red, I'm like, oh yeah, this like it just lit up my brain. Especially if you're a little bit creative. Like I can see where obviously you're a creative person, so like I can see where that comes in. So like okay, going from the blue to the red analogy, I love that because I see it as you start with the blue. If you want to shift to the red, you have to get into the purple first almost.
Correct.
That
And
in
re-
between.
yeah, and everything that got you to the blue probably won't get you to the red, so you have to
Right.
learn new skills. But a lot of people get to the blue and they don't know how they got to the blue, and that's where I come in of breaking it down. Oh, okay, well, what you did is you got on stages and you were a paid speaker and you spoke in front of 500 people, every quarter. And so that gave you an audience of 2,000 people. You converted them into 200 people in your Facebook audience, and then you nurtured them and you sold three of them out of that huge audience. And so
Yeah.
that's where you made your money. And so that's where my little analytical brain comes in and says, how can we get you in front of more people so that you can have a higher conversion rate? If you sell three per thousand people that you're in front of, then we need to get you in front of 10,000 people so that you can sell 30 instead of three.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I'm like, well, that's kind of a low conversion rate. They need to pump that up a little bit. Either get better at selling to raise
Yes.
that or get in front of more people.
Yeah, and like you said, it is trial and error with selling.
Yeah.
We're on a huge campaign right now on a big platform where there's like 150,000 subscribers, and our
Wow.
conversion rate is below 1%, but we're just starting out and it's okay. But the first ad went out and the owners of the company are like, oh, we're 0.7% conversion rate. This is awful. And yes, it is. It should be because
Yeah.
you rarely hit a home run on the first pitch. You
Right.
sometimes have to get up to speed, figure out what's connecting with the audience, and then build that. Uh, I love baseball. In case you don't know me, I'm like one of those weird baseball people. But when you are in baseball, if you are batting 300, you're doing really good. And in marketing, it's the same thing. If you can get up to 30% of what you put out there is actually doing something, you're on a good path for success. If you're batting below 100, like 1 out of 10, then you really need some work and you might have to go back down to the farm league and get some reps and at bats.
Yeah. I love it. I'm so for talking in metaphors. I think people grasp that. They can use that creative brain and visualize it better, which kind of brings me to obviously like you're great as far as like even the video and the production goes. So those of you who are listening, John is the man behind the camera for all of our one stories that are premiering soon. So I'm excited about that, and they did a phenomenal job. So do you get to do both things, right? You get to be creative and you get to use put on the marketing hat. Like, how is this going to appeal to the people who are looking at all these videos of all the different events and things that you do? You do some big events too. So can you talk
Yeah,
just a little bit about that?
and I think behind the camera is a great place to be on both sides of the camera. So um, it's easy to say what you should do in front of the camera if you're never in front of the camera. And so that's why I try to be in front of the camera every day. Well, I am in front of the camera every day. And I am doing the same struggles and the same challenges that you are having. But behind the camera, what I see is you can really tell a lot about a person. And when you're editing, you can tell what their emotional state is. You can tell if they're
Mm,
nervous. You can tell if they're truly happy. And so when I work with people, especially on sets, we get thrown into video projects where we have to fly out to New York, wake up at 4 in the morning, drive halfway across the state, meet with some people who don't want to be on camera and they have no skills of being on camera, and then make it look good because it's an expensive project. So the way that we do that is we work on the mindset, get people into a great state of mind, have them think about something really wonderful, like close your eyes, visualize, what's most important to you. A lot of times it's their kids, and if they don't have kids, it's their dog, and if they're kind of strange, it's their cat, no judgment, but whatever. Um, but whatever makes them truly happy, and then you can see it. Their eyes twinkle. There's a glow to the way that they talk. And the other way that we do it, another trick, and I'll share this story because it was a lot of fun. We were working with the Green Bay Packers on a campaign to help children, and one of the children had no arms and no legs, and they were making bikes for him. Gilbert Brown, who played in the Packers, was part of this campaign. So we were sitting, and it was the kid and Gilbert Brown and me, and there was the whole crew there, and the kid was super nervous, and he couldn't answer the questions. And so I just said, guys, keep kind of gave them the signal they knew to keep the cameras rolling. And I stepped in front of the cameras and I talked to Gilbert Brown about getting nervous. And I said, were you ever nervous on stage? And or excuse me, were you ever nervous on the field? And he said, oh yeah, yeah, like every game, I'm like, did you ever throw up? And he's like, no, but I saw a lot of people puke all over the place. I mean, it's just like common, especially on their first game. So the kids
Wow.
started laughing and, talking and getting a little more loose. And he's like, yeah, Gilbert Brown said, I get over my nervousness when I hit somebody. Like I just got to smack someone really hard. I'm like, well, that's great because you're huge and that's what big people do. Um, and so then I turned to Caden and I said, "Hey, what's your hitting somebody? Because you ran cross country. Excuse me, he had no arms. He did have legs,
Okay.
and he ran cross country. And he said, "Yeah, when I hit that 1 mile, then I know where I'm going to finish. And that's my hitting it." And he went to that place of being at that 1 mile mark in cross country, and he got really happy. So then we just started talking in like a very casual way. And it was one of the best interviews that I ever got because he was very loose and he's very open and he got into a good place with his mindset. So that was a long explanation, but I think it's
Love
so
it.
important that if you're creating content, whether you're writing it down, taking a picture, or creating a video, to get in that good mindset because all of that's translated into your art that you're creating.
I actually enjoy a long story made, or yeah, a short story made long. Those are kind of my favorite, you know. But what a great explanation, because instead of like leaning over to the young man and kind of putting him on the spot, like, okay, let's get you in a better mindset. Like you did it in such a great way where he could just see it. And it was kind of like the Jedi mind trick, right? You kind of
Yep.
you kind of Mr. Miyagi'd him and he didn't even know it, you
I
know.
know, and I'm a huge fan of Star Wars and Karate Kid and Cobra Kai, so that's where I learned everything.
Perfect.
And when I'm on the set, that's what I do is try to use the Jedi and use the Force.
You know, and for someone who's worked with you, John, you know, obviously on my events, what's great and I want people to know about you is you are like the calmest dude in the room. Even if you're in full panic mode, nobody would ever know it. And I've always said this to
Thank
people
you.
behind, you know, kind of behind your back. I'm like, I'll tell you what, like at my event, like you had a computer that went out or something, you're like, yeah, yeah, we'll get it fixed. Don't even worry about it. Like, I don't know if you were in like mass panic mode, but you were like the chillest guy. So I was like, yeah, they've got it handled. Like it didn't make me anxious. It made me so like calm, and he must have Jedi mind tricked me too in that point because I'm like, wow, this, yeah, I'm not. If he's not worried, I'm not worried. It's totally fine.
Yeah. I did, and so it's actually sitting right here. It's been rebuilt.
Good.
It was thousands of dollars, but yes, it was a very expensive. It was a huge computer that we had built and then put into a rack. And then when it got in the rack, they were just wheeling it all over the place on the street and unloading it out of the truck. So putting in a rack was a horrible idea. And then all the cards got snapped and the motherboard got snapped and all these things broke inside of it. And yes, um, it was hard to figure out what we were going to do. And I was also like, I just built it. Like it just got built and it was very expensive. So Um, I'm I'm glad that in my mind, I was going through like the worst day, and I thought that I was very not calm. So to hear that feedback was wonderful. I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, I very much appreciated that because obviously if I'm running an event, I've already got, 500 things on my brain going on between the audience, everything else, and then to come over and you're like, oh, this broke, but you know what? We're making it work. And you come across very calm. And so as an event host, I appreciate because if you were like, oh my gosh, Wendy, this thing broke down, and if you were in full panic, I'd be in full panic. So
Yeah.
you did not come across that way. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm excited. All the videos are amazing. I can't wait to get these all out to the world. Your premiere is, let me look at my calendar, on December 9th. John's premiere is coming out, and if you're hearing this, it's on the 10th on the podcast. So stay tuned. Up next is John's One Story. Thank you again, John.
Thank you, Wendy, for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the Wen Stories.
Of course.
Everything changed when I went to Tony Robbins about 10 years ago. And if you know anything about a Tony Robbins event, you're saying, well, of course, it's a transformational event. It should change. But it didn't happen in the event, it happened after the event. It was in New Jersey, in Newark, which is a totally interesting place if you've never been there. It's kind of like a time warp as you walk down the streets. And they advertise it as New York, but then you end up in Newark. So your expectation was like, oh, I'm going to Manhattan. Then you're in this like weird little place in New Jersey. It was kind of fun. So after the event, there was a significant event. And if you've never been to Tony Robbins, it's like a rave and a jazzercise class and a therapy session all wrapped up into 4 days with 15,000 other people. So it's a rush, right? When I walked in to Tony Robbins on that Thursday, I was kind of my old self, not really tall, kind of slouched over, a little timid, didn't really want to talk to anybody because that's kind of where I was in my journey. And by the time I left, I was powerful, I was strong, and I was ready to go. And I felt so good about myself. I felt like I could do anything. And so I left. My friend lived in Brooklyn. And if you know Newark to Brooklyn, it's a journey. You got to take the 6 to the Blue and then don't go to Long Island, but you got to go over here and across the river. And those New Yorkers, they give you weird directions. But anyways, I'm on my way to Brooklyn and I'm at Union Station in Newark. There's an interesting cast of characters that populate that building. And I'm standing on the platform feeling really good. I'm all Tony Robbins up, right? And this guy walks up to me and says, were you at Tony Robbins? I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Got my little Tony Robbins badge on. I'm rocking it. And he says, oh, cool. Did you get a lot out of it? I'm like, oh, man, I'm ready to go, ready to like take on life. It's like, cool. We're the firewalking team. I'm like, oh, that's cool. He's like, so did you do the firewalk? And I was like, uh, no, I left early. You know, it was late and I was tired and, I got a lot out of it already. And, I felt like I was good and, yada, yada, yada. And he says, oh, do you always leave early for things like this, things that are important? And unfortunately, I said yes, because that was the truth. At that time, it was the truth. I was a leave early. I shouldn't be a leave early at this point in my journey. I shouldn't be a person who leaves Tony Robbins before the fire walk. That's why you go there. You go there to become a fire walker, right? I was sober. I'd spent 20 years fighting alcohol and drugs, trying to prove to the world that I wasn't an addict and alcoholic. And after 20 years, met this beautiful woman. After a couple of months of partying like rock stars, we decided to get married. And shortly after that, she was pregnant. For the next 10 months, 9 months, I fought with my addiction and tried to prove that I was going to be just like my friends. Because my friends, what happened with them is they partied just like I did. But they got married and had a kid, and they were cured. So I thought that's me. We're all the same, right? We all partied together. They did way more drugs than I did, sometimes. So, you know, when I went through that change, it didn't work, and so it took a huge shift. She packed up all of her stuff, packed up the kid, left, and before she left, she threw all my stuff out. So she threw me out and left me all in the same day, and that's the day that I got sober. So I shouldn't be a leave early because I was in the program. I was doing the work, right? So after I got sober, I was reading books because sobriety at some point didn't give me everything that I needed. I needed more. I needed a fix. I needed to take a pill and feel better in the self help kind of way. And it did. When I read No Excuses by Brian Tracy, I changed. I felt different. I spoke to people differently. Life was different. And so they did give me that change. And then I started watching YouTube channels and I started, going to Tony Robbins events. And what I was doing is I was searching for myself. I was looking to find my purpose or my next high. I felt like I had something to prove over that next year after I ran into that firewalker dude. And when I left Tony Robbins, everything that I manifested came true. It happened. I had all these dreams and visions. It just didn't happen the way that I planned. So here's what happened after I left to Tony Robbins. I was going to start my own company and I was going to do all these things. And, I was yelling and screaming, I am the master of my destiny. And I thought it was going to go on this nice, smooth trail. But here's how it really happened. One week in January, right after I went to Tony Robbins, on Wednesday, my baby mama, who was cursed with the same affliction that I am, she had to go away for a while. And I had to tell my daughter that on Wednesday. On Friday, I was approved for a house. It's like, yes, yes, this is what Tony Robbins is all about. It's going to happen. Saturday, my dog died. And Friday, one of the few jobs that I've had in my life, I walked into work on Monday and they fired me. And that was a hell of a week. So how I planned it in Tony Robbins is not exactly how it went in real life. So I went through all of that stuff and I went back to Tony Robbins the next year and I walked on fire. I was a fire walker. I even had my badge, my little sticker or whatever they give you. I was like, yes. Got my picture taken in front of the fire walker wall because that was me. Feeling pretty cool. So when I got back, I could not wait because I had to call Firewalker dude because he gave me his card. I called him, I texted him, I emailed him. I was like, hey man, I'm a Firewalker and I went through all this stuff. I want to prove this to you. And lo and behold, he never called back or text back. He didn't care. He didn't like it wasn't on his radar of something to respond to. So I got no validation out of that. And in all of this, I was trying to find myself. I was trying to find my happiness. I was trying to find my purpose. If I read a book, I would change. If I went to Tony Robbins, I'd be a better person. And if I got sober, everything would be perfect. But I kept leaving early was the problem. In AA, they have a saying that says, don't leave before the miracle happens. So what I've learned in this is that life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. And I've spent my whole life on this search to find it. And it's about creating, and it's about doing those things that help create your best life. So change isn't easy, and staying to the end is tough. And there's a quote that says, challenges are what make life interesting. Overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. And this is what I was missing, and I found this answer that was been in front of me this whole time. I just couldn't see it. And so for some of you, it's obvious. It's obvious that you have to wake up and you have to do the deal every morning, that you have to get the fundamentals down to be great at something. But for me, it wasn't. I'm a drug addict. I want to take a drug, a pill, a bottle, and I want to feel different, and that's how life should be too. So I had to learn something different because I started doing drugs at a really young age. I started doing drugs when I was 10 years old, so I didn't know what life was. I didn't really know how to do this thing that you all are doing on a daily basis. That sounds a little weird, but that's just where I was. So in sobriety, everything works if you work it. And I did for a while, but I left early. Books are a great source, but you know what? I never finished those books. I left early. And I told you about that Tony Robbins thing, and that changed my life. So what I'm getting at is that happiness is a choice. Happiness and being fulfilled and finding your purpose, it's a choice of saying, I'm going to wake up every day and create that. And a couple years ago, I was in depression. And if someone would have came up to me and said that in that dark place, hey, all you got to do is to be happy is just be happy. I would have gouged their fucking eyes out because like you don't want to hear that when you're in a dark place, right? And the answer is not a trick or an easy button. It's by doing the work every day. And so over my journey, here's a few things that I learned, 3 things that I feel help me as the fundamentals of creating my best life. One is gratitude. If I'm deeply rooted in gratitude and connected to the universe, if I'm connected to love, by quietly listening for my higher power. Prayer is for talking to God, meditation is for listening. And for me, I have a squirrel brain, so I can be quiet and still for seconds. But I try to put seconds of quiet followed by the noise, followed by a few more seconds of quiet over 10 or 20 minutes to get grounded. And I really focus on, there's a meditation by Tony Robbins that he guides you through it. And you connect all of your energy to the blue and yellow energy of the universe. You send it out to everybody you love. And then you rise up and you shout about how good you feel. Every time I do that meditation, I cry. I can do it every day and cry because I'm so grateful. That's the kind of gratitude and love that I need to be my best self. The second is programming. Programming for me is so important because whatever I listen to, whatever I say out of my mouth, I believe. And so if I am listening to beautiful, positive stories like yours, then I am connecting to that beautiful part of the universe. If I'm listening to the stuff that has been part of our lives for the last few months, I'm not. It doesn't make me my best self. I need to listen to good things. I need to listen to positive people. If I'm around negative people, if I'm saying I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm short, I'm this, I'm that, I'm going to believe it. And my actions will then become I am fat, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'm whatever. So I can't do that. And the third thing is people. If I surround myself with those great people, that is all that alignment that I need. So alignment is frequency. We are energy. We are atoms. They spin around. They're energy, little balls of tiny energy that are in those little quarks and minions, not the yellow ones, that are inside the atoms. And they make up our matter of who we are. Energy is always vibrating at a frequency. And so if we are aligned with meditation through connecting with the universe, if we are aligned with positive programming and beautiful people, our alignment, our frequency is where it should be. And like frequencies attract each other. You know, whatever you put out into the universe comes back. So I do marketing, and that's what my company does. And how does this relate to marketing? Especially when, we're dealing with publicly traded utility companies and we're dealing with coaches who are just starting out. People buy and engage with people who are on the same frequency. You resonate, literally. Your frequencies are matching and you connect with each other. It gives you a clear sense of purpose because when you are aligned, you can speak clearly of your truth and your purpose without trying to find it. You just are. You are your purpose. You are your why. And people buy who stay from the end and make things happen. And that's where I really needed to improve. So I'm constantly creating my life now, and I'm not leaving early. And I'm applying this to all aspects of my life. And that is when happiness and purpose fills my day. And so when I left Tony Robbins early is when everything changed. Thank you.
Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.